Merry Christmas, everyone. This is coming out after the 12 Days of Christmas, though actually should be within the 12 Days of Christmas still in the Julian calendar, which I do not follow. But um, this is coming out later than I had hoped. I have not had much time to prepare, or a chance to prepare, I should say. And I start class again back up here this week, and so I thought I best get this done. Though this will be considerably shorter than normal lecture. This is lecture number 12. We made it through 2025 and only missed 1 month. Now, there probably won't be any homily or accompanying lecture for January, but I would still like to keep up with it this year. I would like the project ideally is to do all of them, all of Ælfric's homilies eventually. But in 2025, I had the goal to do one a month. I was really close on that, especially since I did one in December of 2024. I did end up hitting 12 homilies, just not 12 in 2025 by itself, just 11 there. But I am again hoping to do more. So I do have one that I already have kind of started. I was not as far into it as I'd like, but that was one I had originally planned for October, and that is against false gods. Um, so hopefully that one will come out soon, and then we'll see about later. I would like to try to cover Cuthbert in March, but we'll see if I have the time. So it is still Christmas season, actually, if you remember from, I believe, maybe our first three lectures. We talked about how the Christmas season really goes until Candlemas at the beginning of February. But those 12 days of Christmas, again, are already over. So I'm going to keep this one rather short. Of course, the homily itself is taken from Series 1, which I have right here. Maybe this year in 2026, I can do Series 2, as the Series 2 does come out this year, actually. I did actually talk to Dumbarton Oaks and requested it. I will see if I am able to get a copy of that. Otherwise, I'm not so sure I can afford it. But the thing also, though, about this lecture, that if you hadn't noticed, I did end up recording 8 other videos to go along with Christmas, which is one reason that this is going to be shorter. I could actually make this longer because I could appropriately have notes not just for the homily, but have notes for the poem that I took those 8 videos from. Those are antiphons, and they are from the poem, often called Christ One, sometimes called the Advent lyrics as well. This is found in the Exeter book. We're actually going to look a little bit at it for our codicology section, which will probably be the biggest section for today. But this is a poem essentially including a bunch of antiphons, presumably included 3 other ones, like O Adonai and O Sapientia and whatnot, that are not O Radix Jesse, right? They do not survive in the poem, but the Exeter book is missing the first 8 or so folia, and this poem is at the very beginning of the book, of that manuscript. So we're probably just missing them. Now, there are other antiphons that are not really part of the liturgy so much these days, but can be included. In fact, the Virgo Virginum one is often included as well, actually, as a last one. In England, actually, that it's moved forward one day. You'll do O Sapientia on the 16th rather than 17th, and then do Virgo Virginum on the 23rd, and still not do it on the 24th. I started on the 17th. I did Virgo Virginum on the 24th, which is extra. Again, you wouldn't normally have one on the 24th, but in some traditions, I believe you also would. It just kind of depends on when you do the antiphons, whether that's at Vespers or some other hour, right? To see how if it'd be more appropriate or not. But these do, of course, align with the Latin antiphons, which, Veni Veni is the common name for the carol in English, or O come, Emmanuel, which is compiled from those antiphons, right? And Veni Veni means come, right? And you can see that the calling actually of come, please come and save us, in these Christ One sections, if you will. Honestly, translating Christ One was really fun. It's a lot different than the poetry. I mean, there's a lot of apposition, if you notice, throughout the poem. Things referring back to things that have been were maybe mentioned originally quite a while ago. You have a lot of this in Beowulf as well. But I think Christ One is probably one of the most beautiful poems that Old English has. It is very focused on Christ, though, and very focused on the birth of Christ. And so maybe that is one reason why it's not super popular when you go and take an Old English class, because it is very obviously Christian. While you go over something like Beowulf, which is Christian, but is not like a Christian text in a lot of ways. It's just a story about pagans, and it's a heroic story. The Wanderer, likewise, right? I mean, these were all written by Christians, of course, but they're not overtly Christian, if that sense. They're not liturgical texts, right? They are wisdom poetry, but they're not liturgical. And so this is very liturgical. So maybe one reason that you don't go over it very often in an Old English class, but it is definitely worthy of study. It is very beautiful. I very much enjoyed going over this, and I didn't go over all of it. That was the thing. I think that's pretty obvious, that Christ One is split into different parts. So I did 8 of the 12 that survive. So there's 4 more that I didn't cover, but I covered all the antiphons essentially. So there is O Joseph, essentially, kind of, which is not an O antiphon. Actually, it's not one of the greater antiphons. You also have like Isaiah 7:14. And again, I didn't go over that one. You have the Sanctus, Sanctus, Sanctus. Again, I didn't go over that. But today I wanted to look a little bit at O Admirabile Commercium. Sorry for butchering that. But this is like kind of how to praise Christ, essentially. And this is the very end of the poem. But we'll go over that in a minute. But again, I also just wanted to mention, because I think it is a useful phrase that someone might not be familiar with, but in Bible studies, and it doesn't come up in the Old English stuff, but this word actually shows up twice in the New Testament as Maranatha, and it is a Aramaic actually saying, and it means like, "Oh Lord, come," or something like that. And I just think that is appropriate to go with these O antiphon ideas, right? The veni, veni, like, come, Lord. So again, if you would like, you can go back and watch those O antiphons, listen to the O antiphons, look at the translations. For one of them, I actually had my pal Charles. He was able to perform O Emmanuel. And so that is included at the end for the Latin segment, rather than just me reading the Latin really quickly. And so that's my favorite of the O antiphons, in a sense, because I think Charles' performance is wonderful. All the other ones, you just have to deal with my recitation of the Latin, which again is very straightforward. The Latins is much shorter than the Old English. Again, Series 2 comes out in May if anyone is interested. Oh. So I did want to go over some words of note. I will say that there are definitely some ideas for Christmas celebration that I could go over more, but I did kind of cover a lot of that in, again, those first few lectures. And I'm busy, and so sadly I haven't had the chance to go over a lot of that again. I will say that if you're interested in like the names of Christmas, I had a separate video come out, or before Christmas, or maybe it was even on Christmas of 2024, talking about the names Yule, the name Christmas, and the name Midwinter, which was the most common, which was the most popular, where those names seemingly are coming from. Of course, Christmas is what we call it today. But I mean, I think it's nice to know something so you don't sound too anachronistic. For example, if you wanted to say Merry Christmas, you probably wouldn't translate it in Old English as Merry Christmas. You'd probably actually say like Happy Midwinter, right? You probably wouldn't say Yule, right? Unless you want to mean the whole time period, right? Same with New Year's Day. That was not called New Year's Day in Old English, so it'd be anachronistic to translate your stuff into Happy New Year's Day or whatever. You would actually say Happy Year's Day, because that is what they called New Year's Day, right? There's a lot of ways to say happy, but if someone is curious, just ask me down below, and I will translate it for you. But again, to get a sense of it, of what these people would have actually called these holidays, Christmas is a late attestation. Midwinter seems to be the common name for the holiday. Just like New Year's Day is not called New Year's Day, it is called Year's Day. And that's actually a really long tradition. While Christmas as a name became popular really late in the Old English period, in the 11th century, Year's Day seems to be the name for New Year's Day, even through the Middle Ages and Middle English period entirely. So anyways, that is an aside mostly. I will say that here are some words that these are actually taken probably mostly from Christ 1 more so than the homily. But we have Swansterda, which essentially just means evening star, but it actually means servant star, literally. The swan element does, which is exactly homophonic with another word, swan, which means swan, but it is not the same word. And it means servant star, right? The first element is actually a doublet of swain, which is borrowing from Old Norse, swain, in Old English, which kind of means like a boy sort of thing. But evening star is swanstera. We also have luft, which means sky. It is the near sky. There is a lower portion of sky. It is where birds fly and whatnot, as opposed to the heavens, which is higher. You have Freobarn, which is funny because when you look at this, it technically looks like it could be a lot of things. It looks like it could be freeborn, lordborn, ladyborn. It seems to be in context to mean more like noble bairn, right? Bairn meaning child. You also have mode, which again, we've mentioned this a lot, but it'll come up a lot more, I feel like, where it means mind, heart, spirit. Again, the concept, your breast actually being where you think. But this is the modern word mode or mood, and it is related to mind. But it also definitely seems to be spirit in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of ways to translate this. In fact, there's even more than these three, but those are common ones. These are very common ones. If I had more time, I actually probably would have looked at more Christmas stuff for in the Helion, so I could go over more of the Helion, the old Saxon text, which we've only gone over once in these lectures. But again, that takes some time. Unfortunately, I'm a bit busy, but there are other texts in these related languages that I think are worth your time. You can get some of this, for example, from the Gothic translation of the Bible. I've gone over like Old Frisian texts, Old Saxon, Old High German. There's Old Norse stuff as well. And Old Dutch a little bit too. So anyways, we also have the word untine. That's the modern English, I should say. And tine means to close or to shut something. So untine is to open it, right? And then we have Theoden, which again is a Theed ruler. Theed meaning people. It is related to the word Dutch or Deutsch. And Theoden, again, is kind of means like prince or king. The in suffix is the same suffix as Woden. He is the ruler of the Wode, which is kind of inspiration, frenzy, rage, madness. That's a lot of different things, but that's what Woden is, right? Then you have dram, which is exactly where the modern English word dream comes from and spelled exactly the same, but it means joy in Old English. But it often has this association with halls, with social settings, right? It is not the normal word for joy, which would be Gefa, yeah, Gefea, which is probably the more common word for joy, strictly. And then you also have Imhwirft, which means around or about revolution, turning circuit. So it kind of means like globe or circular course. It can mean several different things. But the im does survive in, say, like the which is a really uncommon prefix these days, unless you're speaking Scots, maybe. That's pretty much all we have as far as like words of note. I did want to get a little bit, so we can go slowly through the Exeter book. I will link that down below. But as of right now, let me just switch what screen I'm sharing so you can look at the Exeter book more directly. Here we go. So I actually want to go, and this is on the Exeter book. It has its own website. I believe I want to go to 13V. Yes. And this will be the last section of the poem. For example, you can just go to the next page. You'll see that we have a new poem here. Or I don't even know what this is. But we have a new text. So you go here. In fact, this one starts pretty far down. If you look at the E from the previous page, kind of bleeding over, you can see where it starts right here. Ala. So Alachwat, that looks like. Alachwat, that is Raklich Rixel in Wera Liva. Yeah. And so that is our first line, which Allah again, often some people will say it is related to the word hello, but it is literally oh low, essentially, like and it is like an exclamation, right? So it's like oh. And so oh, what's, and what here is probably an exclamation as well. So it's really just like, oh, that is a wondrous exchange. Rixul is exchange in Wera Liva, so in the life of men. Strictly men speaking here, like masculine male men, not men as in just mankind, which is interesting. And then you have Thata Monkines Mirode Shipend, Unfing at Famnan Flash Unwema. So that mankind's merciful creator received from a maiden flesh unmarred. So again, the Famna, meaning maiden. I think we've gone over this one before. But it is not actually related to the word feminine at all. Yeah, so this is an interesting looking Y, and that E is rather tall. I wonder if this is a correction of an error. To me, it looks like it would be. Let's see. Can we find another Y here? That's a tall E as well. Oh yeah, so let's see. If we have Monkines, Milda, Shipping. Yeah, see, there's the Y. It's smaller than a lot of Y's than you see in a Anglo-Saxon text, which also have a lot of are common to have that dot above them. So interesting. Ship end, yeah. Okay, interesting. One thing, yeah, okay. At farm man. Okay. Very neat. Okay, and let's see. And we were at Onwemna or Onwema. Okay, so we have the Tironian et. This is often, it means on, but the version of on that is actually really common in Old English is owned, right? It's actually with an O. I mean, there's a bit of complexity on why it's an O instead of an A, but it is very common. In this case, I would say it's probably, Tironian et is probably actually representing an owned rather than an on. I'm having technical difficulties here for a second. Hopefully the video is fine, but I cannot look at it right now as I'm on the other page. There we go. Okay. I'm not sure if the video lagged there at all, but my computer was definitely not having it. So we have owned here. And let's see. So owned sioveras frija wicht nekuda. So, and she had not known the love of a man. So she of a man, whereas frija wicht nekuda. So she had not known, literally known, like kuth. So which is interesting. And I don't think, I wonder, like wicht often means like, it can mean weight actually in Old English, but it can also mean like a creature. It's where the modern English word white comes from. It just means like a thing. It doesn't mean like this weird ghost monster thing. So interesting. Okay. Okay. And then we have, let's see, Nethur sad nekom sichres ayend. Right. Nor did the Lord of Victory come. So victory is an interesting one because he actually has several words for victory in Old English. And one of them is sichores. So it's of, this is genitive, so of victory here. And then quom is come. Which then I would say the common word is probably see. Like you get in like Sigmund or whatever, which is Sigmundur in Old Norse. But you definitely have different versions of it, which they are related, of course, actually. And here's your Sichoris right here. Sichoris. And not really that difficult to read, I'd wager. Again, you got your insular G. Your D's are flattened in a sense. So let's again go down here. Monis over Moldan, ach that was ma kraft. By the seed of a human on earth. Yeah, okay. Excuse me, but that was a more skillful art. But that was, yeah, ma kraft. Thona hit earthbuend ala kudan. Thur yerina, huche orodra thrim. Let's see. So all the earth dwellers could comprehend in its mystery, so yerina, how he glory of the skies. So thrim is like, I think it should be related to the word thunderings actually. And rodra actually is related to the word rotate as far as I'm aware. So rodra seems to mean something more like a rotate, like a wheel. In my mind, it seems to mean more something like the sidereal sky, rather than strictly the heavens, and related to the constellations. But that is my thought process around it, at least. But and then you have Geovona, so you have the word split here. Hafra, was that helpa? Ælfric? Yeah, Ælfric. Monakina, Kina, Thur. Okay, so your Y's here are actually going to be rounded. So Kina, which they are not in later Old English, and so I never actually say them that way when I'm reading Ælfric. But here you will be. So Kina Thur. His motor. Let's see, where was I? High Lord of the Heavens, yeah, brought help. Help looks a lot like help still. To the race of men through his mother's womb. Let's see, yeah, his motor hrif. Okay, yeah. Which hrif kind of means it's actually riff, so I think it's probably related to like the mid riff, which I'm not sure why it doesn't survive by itself. But the mid meaning the middle part here. So hrif means like belly or womb. Often the word you see for womb, at least we have seen in Ælfric, is inoth, which just means like the inner part of things. So it can kind of mean like your bowels generally. And the word for womb is actually womb, which again can mean like a belly or womb. So, anyways, so let's see what we got. So that's hrif, and then we got the ond again. Onswa forthgoyenda fortkaneriend. And so again we have and coming forth thus the savior of the peoples. So the folk is peoples. Neriend is savior here, which is again not a word we really see in Ælfric or haven't much. But again, it can mean savior. I'm trying to think. I think it is related to the verb nerian, which means to save, rescue, or preserve. And so I mean, it's exactly what it means. It's someone who's a rescuer in a sense, right? The rescuing, the end, right, as the ending you would see also in like Holland. So, and in fact, actually, one thing actually that is a good thing to note here, it doesn't really matter in this noun, as it is neriend. Neriend, right? Which is just funny with these e's, but it is nerian here, but the verb is nerian. So Nerian. So ner is not nerian, it's nerian. So actually, when you have that I following this R, it is a ya sound, like a J phonetically, right? The Y, a modern Y. Just like Herian, nu shulan herian, helvondriches waters. How Cadman's hymn opens. It's herian, is not herian. Okay, so when you have an I following this R, that sound makes a yeah. So herian, nerian. Okay, which is one of those more finer particulars you get after studying Old English. I would say a little longer than just the original like pronunciation guides you get. Just sort of like your E and G's are going to make an inge sound, like ingulum, which your initial pronunciation guide would essentially not clue you into that probably. So anyways, we could probably actually stop there. Though again, you can see actually that the end of the poem is really close. And you do actually get to see the amen here at the very bottom with the superscript, just and then the end is just implied, right? I wonder if that was so much because it's at the end of this. You can actually still see the ruling, which is really interesting because you don't always get to see it. The medieval texts, when you look at them, you often just see a bunch of words on a page, and you're like, how did they write it so straight? Well, they ruled them. They ruled these manuscripts, and you can still see the ruling in this case, actually. Oftentimes it's disappeared, but it is actually a rather complicated ruling. You can see, like, for example, it's ruled a lot like our modern, like, lined paper. I don't have any on hand, but you can see that we don't really want to go over this if we can avoid it. And if we do go over it, we don't go over this line at all, actually. And you can see that they're pretty strictly following these lines. So it's very cool, actually, to be able to see it here. I don't think, yeah, you can't really see it on this page that much. You can see a bit of it, but I wonder if that's coming in from the page on the other side. So it's interesting. See it on the recto here. So, but again, Wunath Bhutan Enda here. So, which means dwells forever without end, right? So dwells without end, I should say. The forever part is right before it. What does that say? That's fair. This one's confusing me. Let's see. Oh, Weirdan. Yeah, okay. All in the Weirdan. That's good. Ooh, threw me off for a second. Weirdan. It's this A again, which doesn't look like a great A. I wonder if that. Yeah, I guess it's just the style, but this one looks a little funny. Looks almost like a U. And now I'm looking for a U, but interesting. Okay. But it's fun to go through these texts. They're not edited for your convenience by any means. But surprisingly, a lot of them are actually relatively easy to read. I was looking at a text from a Middle English text just last week for an Arthurian romance. And that text is very difficult to read. And that it would be a late Middle Ages, 15th century, early part of the 15th century. These are relatively not that difficult once you learn a bit about them. It's really not that hard. So anyways, that is it. That is the Merry Christmas lecture, everyone. Again, hopefully I'll have more stuff soon. I mean, I do have, again, related videos on my other main channel, which I don't really mention that often here. That is Liam's Lyceum, but strictly speaking, the Ælfric Homily project will go on. But hopefully this was a nice taste, even if it was rather short. But thank you, everyone, for being a part of the project. Excuse me. And I hope that you'll continue to get something from these videos. Anyways, I will catch you next time. Thank you.